Hello all. In this lecture, we are going to study power plant instrumentation. Basically, up till now, we have seen how the costs are introduced in the power plants. What are the various types of costs which are there in designing a power plant system? What are the various elements related to a power plant? How the power is generation? What are the various aspects related with the power plant generation? Then, when we are determining the design of a power plant, how the procedure of a design is carried out. Basically, these all concepts were related to a fixed element and operational element. So, while learning the costs and that particular parameters, now we are going to learn the various elements of instrumentation. Basically, in instrumentation and control, the various elements of power plant design are taken into consideration, and in these elements the instrumentation and control is related to the use of various instruments which are used for the various parameters. So this power plant instrumentation is a very important concept while designing a particular power plant. There are various systems. Whether we take a steam power plant, then we will have a boiler. Whether we will take an diesel power plant, we will have an engine. So for measuring each and every parameter, we require instrumentation, and for controlling the various flows or the parameters, we require their control. So first slide, power plant instrumentation, the importance of instrumentation and control. Meters are required to indicate, then integrate, record, and alarm the various parameters like flow, temperature, level, density. Sensing elements, transmitters, power supplies, indicators, recorders, integrators are all covered under instrumentation or measuring system. Apart from this, controllers, final control elements, interfaces, programmer, etc. are grouped as control and instrumentation system. The cost of instrumentation and control system exceeds 10% of the total equipment costs. So we have seen in this slide that what is the importance of instrumentation and control, because while taking the reading, we are required to see that we are requiring certain parameters which we have to note down in the register or a task sheet. So for that, we have to record the temperatures, record the flows, record the level. Then for sensing elements, we are requiring the transmitters, then power indicators, then integrators, etc. At the same time, we require alarms, we require programmable controllers, then logic controllers for as a control system for controlling any process in the power plant. So therefore, this is the importance of instrumentation and control. Going to the second slide, important of instruments. Instruments are useful in many ways for a power plant operation. They give accurate information about the parameters. They provide supervisors the adequate information for safe, continuous, reliable, and economical operation of the power plant. So see that the recording of the instruments is more important, because the for efficient operation of the power plant, certain readings or certain parameters are set, that is lower limit, upper limit of temperatures, lower flow rate, higher flow rate of the discharges, so etc. So basically, for recording this, the instruments are more required for the power plant systems. Going to next slide, how the instruments are classified now in a power plant. So classification of instruments in a power plant. Mechanical instruments, in that first is temperature measurement. Basically, you will find that there are three categories of mechanical measurements, like temperature, then temperature measurement, then flow measurement, and pressure measurement. So first is temperature measurement. So see why there are various ranges of temperatures. Also, there are various ways in which the temperatures are being measured. So basically, first is liquid filled thermometers. It is used to measure the temperature of condensate, circulating water, feed water, bearing oil, and etc. Then gas filled bulb and tube thermometers. It is used for measuring the temperature of gases or liquids up to 500 degrees Celsius. So this is the range up to which this type of thermometers can be used. Then vapor pressure thermometer. It can be used to measure the temperature up to 250 degrees Celsius. So this is the range up to which these vapor pressure thermometers can be used. Then electrical resistance thermometers, that is RTDs. We know that these RTDs and thermistors are having a larger uh, range up to which it can measure the temperature. So you can see that it is used for accurate measurement of feed water, condensate, bearing oil, lubricating oil, etc. And last is the thermocouples, because this is the basic use of the temperature. This is the basic device which uses the temperature measurement system. This can be used for measuring high range temperatures such as furnace flue gas, preheated air, water after economizer, etc. So basically, various thermocouples are available in market. They are available in their combination type, like K type thermocouples, N type thermocouples. This is the combination of two or more metals which form a junction, and then they measure the temperature by taking the difference between a hot junction and cold junction. So therefore, these thermocouples are used for measuring the higher temperatures. So these are the various devices which are used for temperature measurement in any power plant. Then second is pressure measurement. First is a standard Bourdon tube pressure gauge. It is extensively used for measuring moderate and high pressure in the medium, like steam, then water, then combustion air, fuel, oil, etc. So these type of pressure gauges are mostly used in measuring moderate and high temperatures. Then second is a helical tube or diaphragm type pressure gauge. It is used for low pressure measurement like bleeder steam pressure, then exhaust pressures, air pressure, etc. So these diaphragm pressures are used for lower pressures, or we can also say that after these manometers and vacuum gauges are there which measure very low pressures. So vacuum gauges and manometers, these are used for condenser vacuums, heater pressures, etc. So basically, see, whenever a system is started, we are having two types of pressure at that particular starting system. Taking the example of a turbine, at the outlet of turbine we are having lower pressure, at the inlet we are having higher pressure. So basically, vacuum gauges and manometers will do the work of measuring the pressure both at inside and outside condition of the turbine. So similarly, for power plant instrumentation, vacuum gauges and manometers are more important. Then draft gauges, which are measuring again low temperature, low pressures, like furnace draft, that is the output of the furnace, then furnace pressure and fan pressures, etc. So these are the four types of pressure gauges which are used in the measurement of pressure in a power plant. Then third is flow meters, that is flow measurement. First is steam flow meters. It is used to measure individual boiler output, group boilers output, turbine input, etc., with a suitable sensor like orifice in the pipeline. So from the orifice, the steam will be flowed, and the difference between the inlet and outlet at the vena contracta section, this orifice can measure the flow rate of the steam. So in this way, the steam flow meters are used. Water flow meters, it is used to measure condensate, then feed water, pump discharges, cooling circuit waters, raw water, etc. Wherever the water is supplied to any system, there these type of meters are employed in order to find the efficiency of that particular unit. Then airflow meters, like anemometers, we can use. It is used to measure flow of combustion air at different zones and total airflow. And fourth is atomized steam or airflow meter. This can be used to measure the quantity of either steam or air used for atomization of oil fuel. Then fourth is fuel measurement. First is coal. It is weighed in batches when in intermediate hoppers using load cell. So see, the total that is weight of the coal is measured by a load cell. Belt conveyor also weighs are used. That is belt conveyor weighs are used. Then second is gas meters. They are either differential heat type or positive displacement type. Same is with oil meters. They are positive displacement type, differential head type, or variable area type rotameters are used. Fifth is level measurement. Why level measurement is required at what condition, we will see. Water level in boiler drum and other tanks, then oil level, coal level in bunkers, and pulverized coal bins. Then sixth is speed measurement. speed for the turbine is to be measured, then other large motor speeds and grade speed. And seventh is gas analysis, that is carbon monoxide plus hydrogen or carbon dioxide and oxygen measurements in flue gases, then sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxide components in waste gases, and also for measuring the calorific value of fuels, this gas analysis is done. So these are the 7 categories of the measurements of mechanical systems. Then second is the electrical instruments. What are the various electrical instruments used for the measurement in power plant? First is ammeter. So ammeters are used in generator leads, feeder circuits, auxiliary power circuits, and field circuits. Voltmeters are used in measuring generating and transmitting voltages, then various other feeding voltages, auxiliary motor voltages, etc. Wattmeters, they are used for measuring the power generated and feeder powers, and other meters like synchroscope for measuring the actual speed of the system, any system. Then power factor meter for measuring the load, frequency meter for measuring the frequency, reactive volt ampere meter for measuring the distribution between the VI parameters, etc. Now, what are the objectives of the instrumentation and control? So the major objective, the first is the plant should be having an efficient operation. So efficient operation of plant. Second should be economic operation of the plant. This economic operation of plant will be dependent on these following parameters as improve combustion efficiency to reduce fuel consumption by reducing excess air. Then increase thermal efficiency of the boiler, minimize the blowdown, plan for proper maintenance schedule, and optimization of boiler operation. So these parameters will improve the economic operation, means the cost will be less, so thereby the operation will be economic. Third is safe operation of the plant using safety measures, and D is the pollution control, that is the pollution created by the power plant when it is in operation, that is also should be that should also be in control because it should not affect the environment. So these are the various objectives of the instrumentation and control systems. Now the basic thing which we are going to learn is that we are going to see the individual parameters, how the line diagram, basic diagram are plotted for any particular supply system. So first we are taking into consideration as feed water supply. So the feed water plays very important role in steam thermal power plant. The feed water is first converted into saturated steam in the combustion chamber area, then to superheated steam in the superheater. So see that the water is first converted into steam in the combustion chamber area, that is at the actual boiler area, and then superheated steam to the superheater. After the heat energy is utilized in the turbine to rotate turbo alternator, that is which is connected to the generator, that is the turbine, it is also known as turbo alternator. The steam is condensed in the condenser and recirculated again as feed water. This is the working of the steam power plant. Then physical condition of the feed water is measured at different points as pressure, temperature and quantity. The chemical condition of the feed water is determined by measuring conductivity, then the pH value and the dissolved oxygen, etc. Now, what are the various types of waters involved in boiler operation? See the various types of waters now involved in the boiler operation. First is raw water. It is natural with such impurities as the earth has originally endowed it. Raw water is available either as groundwater or as surface water. So again we will have the distribution of what is groundwater and what is surface water. So groundwater, the water available from wells and springs with dissolved hardness is usually clear, and surface water is the water from streams and lakes will have dissolved hardness like groundwater in addition to insoluble organic and inorganic matter in suspension. So hence it is known as a turbid water. Second is boiler water. It is actual liquid contents of the boiler of which the water drum is typical. Feed water, the water which is introduced into a boiler to replace the evaporation. The feed water has to be pumped by the feed water pump at a pressure sufficiently above that of the boiler to cause the correct flow into the boiler. So see that inside the boiler the actual pressure is maximum, or at the same time the pressure is different as compared to the atmospheric and inside. So therefore the feed water is sent in such a way that the pressure of the incoming feed water and inside pressure of the boiler is same, so that there will be a correct flow of the feed water into the boiler. The feed water is passed through economizer to pick up some heat from the flue gases to increase the efficiency of operation. Then blow down. Water that is drained from the boiler is nothing but the blow down water. So depending on the point of blow down connection, this water may have equal or greater impurity content than the boiler water. All chemicals that enters the boiler through injection or in the feed water must ultimately be removed in the boiler blow down. Assuming a constant level of chemical concentration in the boiler water and also in the feed water, the chemical concentration of the water in the boiler is determined by the ratio of blow down flow to feed water flow. If the average blow down is 10% of feed water flow, then the chemical concentration of boiler water is 10 times that of feed water. So this is the blow down type of water. Then condensate water. The steam generated from the boiler is utilized in the turbine for rotating it, and hence the alternator for power generation. The exhaust steam from the turbine is condensed in the condenser with the help of circulating cooling water and collected in the hot well. The water thus collected is reused as feed water, so that no more treatment is required for this water. And makeup water is, the condensate water is not sufficient as feed water, because some portion of feed water is lost in the process as loss of water in boiler system, that is nothing but due to evaporation. To make up that, raw water has to be treated and added to the condensate water. So therefore the boiler feed water is the addition of condensate water and makeup water. On a continuous basis only, the portion of the boiler feed water called makeup water needs to be treated chemically. So then next is cooling water. To condensate the steam in the condenser and maintain low pressure in it, a large quantity of cooling water is required. This water is taken from the river or pond, but not treated like the boiler feed water. The heat absorbed by this water can be removed by sending this water to cooling towers. We can see the working of a steam power plant here. The cooling water is supplied to the system where the heat is there, and again it is sent to the cooling towers where it is again cooled. Then the same water can be recirculated. Now we will see the boiler feed system. A typical boiler feeds water supply consists of two parts: makeup water treated in the water treatment plant and the condensate water. So you can see here the system is written. You can see the diagram. At upper stage we are having vent, then water and steam is inputted here, de-aerating heater and storage, and the recirculation is done. The boiler feed pumps are there where the feed water heater is taken, and then from the feed water heater header it is going towards the boiler. So typical boiler feed water supply consists of two parts: makeup water treated in the water treatment plant and the condensate water. The feed water is heated and pumped by feed water pumps to the boiler. The feed water is admitted to the de-aerating heater where it is heated with the help of steam. While heating helps to improve the boiler efficiency, the de-aeration helps to remove the dissolved gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide. So this de-aeration plays an important role while the water is fed to the boiler. It is highly recommended to eliminate the entrained or dissolved gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide from the feed water before entering the boiler in order to prevent it from corrosion. Water is directly heated with steam to form an intimate mixture of steam and water at boiling point. The entrained or dissolved gases get released from the water. The released gases are then vented out to the atmosphere. The water leaving the de-aerator heater is deposited into an integrated heater water storage tank which is connected to the section of boiler feed pumps. Shut-off valves, then non-return valves, etc. are shown in recirculation and feeding lines to have the proper operation. So this basic feed water supply is considered having the de-aerating heater and storage system where it is required to heat the water before it is fed to the boiler. Thank you.